Hi, everyone. It's Carrie, and I'm back with another quick crime take. I needed to take a break from the Waukesha case for just a little bit and wanted to talk about what's going on with Ethan Crumbley. As most of you know, he is the 17-year-old that went into a Michigan high school and did something that we can't say that he did here on YouTube. Anyway, you'll know what I'm talking about. He's called the Oxford High School shooter. They're in the pre-sentencing hearing right now. They're doing what they call a Miller hearing. So I wanted to explain this to everybody. The 17-year-old Oxford shooter has been present in court for what's known as a Miller hearing before he can be sentenced for the 24 felonies he's convicted of. The shooter faces mandatory sentences of life. Let me share this screen with you guys. The shooter faces mandatory sentences of life in prison without parole in connection with the November 30th, 2021 shooting. But his sentencing must be handled differently because he's a minor. Since the hearing began on Thursday of July 27th, the defense and prosecution have called witnesses to offer testimony in support of and against a parole option for the defendant. In short, the defense has been trying to prove the belief that the defendant should be allowed a parole option and that he is not beyond rehabilitation. Prosecutors have been working to establish the opposite, arguing the incredibly violent and premeditated violence calls for the harshest sentences. The hearing is still not over and will resume later this month, which we're gonna check on that before I end this. Below we're breaking down what was presented during the hearing on Tuesday, August the 1st, and the previous Thursday and Friday. So they've broken it down for us here. It basically says on July 27th, testimony was heard from several of the prosecution witnesses, namely law enforcement members, involving the investigation of the November 2021 incident. The defendant has since admitted to and been convicted of murdering 4 students that day and shooting and injuring 7 other people, among other crimes. The prosecutors on July 27th went through the disturbing journal entries, text messages, and videos created by the defendant leading up to the tragic event. Some of this evidence has been shown in court throughout the last several months, but some evidence was not to the public. These writings were meant to help establish just how premeditated the violent attack was and how much the defendant was forward to it. Ah, we need to see this to really get a better idea because I'm going to tell you some of these pieces that I watched, his attorney touched my heart. His defense attorney touched my heart, you guys. This child was let down in life. I'm not condoning anything he did. I'm not going against anything that anybody else has had to deal with now and what they've lost considering what he did. I'm just saying it's the whole story is just freaking sad. Among the evidence was a video of the defendant recorded the day before the shooting, in which he identified himself as the nation's next mass you know what, and explicitly outlined his plans and motives for the events. Other documents, he glorified weapons, other school incidents, and discussed how much he wanted to carry out this incident. The prosecution introduced 3 additional witnesses on Friday, July the 28th, including 2 high school students and an assistant principal who directly experienced the incident and the defendant. Their emotional testimonies offered 3 perspectives of horrific event, including details for their attempts to help students who were injured or unalived and the shooter's actions. While Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald said she agrees it should be exceedingly rare that a minor be sentenced to life without parole, she and her team argue that the Oxford shooter is an exception and deserves the harshest punishment possible. Meanwhile, the defense has been working to establish the defendant as a young boy who was dealing with mental health issues and neglectful parents leading up to and at the time of the event. On July 28th, the defense had 3 witnesses take the stand: an incarceration expert, the defendant's jail-appointed therapist, and an expert in development psychology who specializes in child development. Through their witnesses' testimony, defense attorneys have tried to show the judge that the defendant is not irreparably corrupt and can be rehabilitated. The witnesses, who were recognized by the court as experts, offered insight into the defendant's mental state, how advanced his brain development was at the time of the incident, and what rehabilitation might look like while he is in prison. The defense called their final witness Dr. Colin King, a clinical and forensic psychologist, on Tuesday, August 1st, who was questioned by both sides throughout the day. The doctor testified that he believed the defendant to be mentally ill at the time of the incident and in the present. Though determining the defendant was fit to stand trial, King said he believed that the defendant suffers from psychosis. He also diagnosed the defendant with major depressive disorder, anxiety, and features of obsessive compulsive disorder. Defense played 5 video clips from one incident inside of the Oakland County Jail where the defendant is lodged, which were recorded sometime after the incident. In the videos, the defendant can be seen thrashing as officers calmly restrain him. The defendant continuously yelled, "God, why didn't you stop it? And please help me." Prosecutors argue the alleged psychosis on display in the video was a result of the defendant's violent crime and didn't necessarily predate it. Prosecutors also tried to establish that the defendant's believed mental disorders were not believed to have motivated the defendant, who repeatedly and explicitly expressed his desire to harm people and animals and get attention for it. The remainder of the hearing's third day was spent going through the nuances in Dr. King's report. This hearing, called a Miller hearing, is not a trial, and there is no jury in this case. Both sides presented their cases to the judge, who will have the sole authority to sentence the Oxford defendant. Well, I guess you could say the Oxford High School. You know what? This hearing is mandatory because the shooter is considered a minor, even though he's been convicted as an adult. He was 15 years old at the time of the incident. The Supreme Court ruled in 2012 that sentencing for minors facing life in prison without the chance for parole must be considered differently than for adults. During a Miller hearing, a judge considers a number of factors that may or may not affect how they sentence the convicted individual. The Supreme Court's ruling in the case Miller versus Alabama states that instead of automatically imposing a life sentence, a judge or a jury must have the opportunity to consider mitigating circumstances before imposing the harshest possible penalty for juveniles. The Michigan Bar says a judge or jury will specifically consider the following factors during a Miller hearing, which attorneys often refer to as the Miller factors. 1. The defendant's chronological age and its hallmark features, among them immaturity, impetuosity, and failure to appreciate risk and consequences. 2. The defendant's family and home environment. 3. The circumstances of the homicide offense, including the extent of the defendant's participation in the conduct and the way familial and peer pressure may have affected the defendant. 4. Whether the defendant might have been charged with and convicted of a lesser offense if not for incompetencies associated with youth. And 5. The defendant's possibility of rehabilitation. All of these factors have been touched on by both sides, and prosecutors have been trying to show the judge that despite potential mitigating circumstances, such as the defendant's complex home life and his parents, the defendant actively planned, prepared for, and expressed desire to inflict serious pain and harm to others. Prosecutors also emphasized that the incident wasn't an impulsive act, but rather a well thought out, executed style incident that the defendant felt would bring him fame. Since the defendant has been convicted, the defense isn't trying to disprove that he is responsible for the murders, assault, and terrorism. Instead, the shooter's attorneys are focused on their belief that the defendant isn't beyond rehabilitation, which is one of the Miller factors. The defense's goal is to get the defendant some sort of sentence that includes an option for parole. Prison time is inevitable, but the judge will be able to decide if and when parole could be an option for the defendant down the line. Though possible rehabilitation is one of the Miller factors, prosecutors argue that legally their burden is not to prove that the defendant is beyond rehabilitation. Rather, prosecutors are focusing more on the proportionality of the sentencing to the crime while considering the Miller factors. Prosecutors argue the severity of the defendant's actions, thoughts, and intentions go well beyond any mitigating circumstances that might have affected the event or the defendant. Again, it will be up to the judge to decide what effect, if any, mitigating factors might have on the defendant's sentence. So what's coming next? All right. First of all, this report was done. Let's give props where it came from. This was News 4, Detroit, their local 4 channel. And this was written on August the 2nd, but it's been updated since then, hasn't it? I think it's been updated since then. Okay, so hang on, let's get back down here. I just found it interesting because I kept seeing that on the videos, like, what is the Miller hearing? And I wanted to understand it better. So hopefully that helps you guys. So what's next? And I think we're already here. Well, this is where we are now. The Miller hearing did not conclude on August the 1st as expected. The court will reconvene for the hearing's fourth day at 9 a.m. on August the 18th. They've already done that because I'm recording and today is the 24th. Following the hearing, the judge will issue a decision on whether to sentence the minor to life without parole or to a term of life in prison instead. The Michigan bar says whatever the judge decides, the court is required to state on the record the aggravating and mitigating factors it considered in reaching its decision. A sentence hearing has not yet been scheduled, and the judge said Tuesday he needs to discuss with the Michigan Department of Corrections before setting a sentencing date. So let's back up a little bit and we'll go over his charges. He opened fire at a school during school hours on November 30th of 2021. 4 students were killed and 7 other people were injured. Soon after, he was charged as an adult with 24 felonies by the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office. The defendant was expected to stand trial this January after initially pleading not guilty to all charges, but he changed that plea to guilty in October of 2022. He has been convicted of the following crimes: 1 count of terrorism causing death, 4 counts of first-degree murder, 7 counts of assault with intent to murder, 12 counts of possession of a firearm in the commission of a felony. It is the first time that a U.S. I'm not allowed to say this word on. I don't think I can say this word on YouTube. So I'm gonna. You know what he did? He has been convicted of terrorism. Interesting. I find that interesting. So, you guys, terrorism causing death and first degree murder both carry a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole in Michigan. Assault with intent to murder in Michigan carries a maximum sentence of life in prison or imprisonment of any number of years. A person's first felony firearm conviction is punishable by up to 2 years in prison in Michigan. A second felony firearm conviction carries 5 years sentence, while third and subsequent convictions carry 10-year sentences. The defendant's defense attorneys recently filed a motion in an attempt to have the life without parole condition of his possible sentence dismissed, but that request was denied. And the judge also denied that the defense request to wear street clothes instead of a jumpsuit to the Miller hearing. So what's going on with his parents? Because we like to lean a lot of, we want to put some blame on the parents. And I think when you're dealing with a youth, there is accountability obviously still on the parent side. My question is that, and this is something just for all of us to think about. This is the first time we've ever seen the parents be brought in like this and charged and go through alongside their child, courts, trial, jail time, all that, right? Who's to say that whatever happens here with this trial isn't going to open up some old wounds in other previous cases of these same scenarios where this happened at the schools? Wondering if that could be a case here. If the way this judge rules on the parent side, is it going to affect previous incidents? We know it will affect things going forward. So this is Michigan law we're looking at, but I just thought that was interesting to think about. This article keeps calling him a shooter, and I don't want to say that. And the reason I'm not saying that is because YouTube doesn't like that word, so I'm saying defendant instead. The defendant's mother and father are also facing criminal charges in connection with the fatal incident. In addition to allegedly neglecting their son and his emotional and mental health needs, as prosecutors argue, the parents are also accused of buying their son the handgun used in the shooting. After months of the defense's parents attempting to get their case thrown out, the Michigan Court of Appeals in March upheld a ruling ordering them to stand trial on the 4th involuntary manslaughter charges they each face. So that's really interesting. That to me is going to be a bigger outcome than the defendant himself here and what happens in his trial. Now, personally, just to say my personal thought on this is that I don't agree. Obviously, none of us agree with what he did. I do think that his parents seem to be really just not good parents. Do I find that that's what caused this? Could be. I feel like it could be because this child was crying out for help and he wanted attention and he wasn't getting it from his parents and he wasn't getting it from being good. I'm not, what, okay, in a 15-year-old's mind, if you think about a 15-year-old's mindset that's going through all that, that's that troubled, has that many mental issues, this was his way of getting attention. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm only giving my opinion, okay? But I'd love to hear from you guys on your thoughts on the case and put more down in the comments below. In the meantime, let's watch this video that I have here. I could tell just by watching some of this that his defense attorney she's got a soft spot for him. I don't see how any normal human being couldn't have a soft spot for another human being. And that's just my thoughts. I know there are other people that are going to disagree with me with that, but also it wasn't one of my family members that were hurt either.
You don't stop it. Why did you stop it? Why did you stop it? Why did you stop it? I know she stopped it. Please stop 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 it. Why did you stop it, God? Why did you stop it? Why did you stop it, God? Why did you stop it? Why did you stop it? You let it happen. Why? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, please, God. I'm sorry. Please, God, I'm sorry, God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, God. Crumbley. Stop it. You couldn't stop it, God, but you didn't stop it. And now it continues. It's always stop it. God, stop it, please. Stop it, God. Stop, God, stop. Stop pushing forward. Stop, please, God.
My name is Ethan Crumbley, aged 15, and I'm going to be the next school shooter. I thought about this a lot. I can't stop thinking about it. Like, it's constantly in my head. Every conversation I have with someone, no matter what, I'm thinking about it and I can't get it out. It's currently November 29th, 2021, 10:05 p.m. The school I'm shooting up is Oxford High School. I'm in 10th grade there. I've always been fascinated by guns when I was a kid. And I always wanted to join the forces and SWAT when I was in 3rd grade. Navy SEALs when I was in 4th. Marines, 5th or 7th. Army, Rangers. And I've never thought of a career. I've never had motivation. I kept lying to myself that there was something out there for me. There was something that was going to make me happy. That was going to provide me a happy, loving, caring life. But that's bullshit. It's all a lie. I realized that. Well, in 9th grade, I never thought of this. I thought I was going to make it through school and go into the army, but I realized, what's the fucking point? Millions have done it. Thousands have regretted it. Thousands have killed themselves because of it. Many come back and not happy, not satisfied. And I'm thinking, it's the only thing I want to go into, but how will it make me happy? How will I love doing that? How will I love? And I realized that that's not going to work out. So I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I realized all the bullshit that was right in front of me, and I never realized it. I was always the kid who said, work hard in school and you'll get a career in life. But the career is bullshit. And it was right in front of my fucking eyes the whole time. I couldn't see it. The school system is... Their main goal is to put youth just born into this world to learn. And they actually learn fucking good. They learn K through 5. They learn useful stuff. Stuff about the world that teaches them not how the world is, but how it should be, and how they want it to be. The teachers brainwash them into what they think is right, and their minds are so underdeveloped that the adults just take advantage of it. And they say that's too good for humanity. And when you get into middle school, that's even more useless. It's just an excuse to wait till the kids grow up. They're wasting years of their life learning knowledge they're most likely never going to do unless they become a Nobel Prize scientist or mathematician or the fucking founder of a multi-million-dollar environment club. And they're brainwashed. They're teaching a working class into this world. There's no teaching of working class centuries ago. They're either born into it or they weren't. You were born into a working class, you were forced to work. You weren't born, you helped develop the world. You created technology, you created advances in civilization. There was only two indifferences, and the working class rose up and made everyone a working class. And now, no matter what, you just have to work. To do what? We spend 15 years of your life just hard studying and trying your hardest to achieve the best out of anyone in any school. And then you get accepted into college. And you could be rich, so you don't have to worry about it, or it could put you into thousands of debt. And you get a useless job that other people have gotten, and you think that it is doing something for this planet. You think that all those years of working and you get a job is doing something for the good of humanity. It's fucking not. It's useless. The education system and the government is just brainwashing people to be a working class. They're all brainwashing them just to fucking work and keep society how it is, but people want to go in a different direction. They don't want to work, but they see, that's where I don't fucking understand it. I'm not dumb enough to fully understand their capabilities. I'm not as dumb as them, so I can't understand, but they want to revolt and become a new class education system that just weakens everything. They want to fucking keep the innocence of everyone. They want to make sure that monsters are a thing. They're offended of a horror movie. They want to take away what this world is. In this world, it's not heaven. There is no heaven. There is no God. There is no Satan. There is no hell. But the world is hell in its own way. People don't think of it. You think as hell is the bottom, earth is the middle, and heaven is the top. But in reality, the earth is just hell. It's always been that, and people want to just forget it. They want to just take away what already is. It's stupid. Taking action. People go and protest, fucking take away guns, or make what I'm doing. I believe I am one of the first people to do this. I'm not only shooting up the school because I'm mentally depressed or mentally ill and have anxiety that struggles me every day, but I'm doing it to teach a word and all the simplicities. I don't fucking even know how to say that. All the fucking dunces out there, that brains are too, their skulls are too fucking low to understand everything. Unfortunately, the people I kill are the people that are killed. You know, I'm sorry that their families have to go through this, but it's for the right of humanity. And the course we're going, we're fucked. In 50 years, we're fucked. Nothing's going to happen. Democrats and the Republicans are just going to fight, and people are keep going to taking sides, and some people are going to stick out and say they're the big brainers who don't think of it, but really, they're the main problems. And it's just leading to a collapse. The world worked so hard for thousands and thousands of years. The war happened. Peace was a thing. People understood everything. People understood the logistics of human civilization. The time from 1920 to 1980 was the golden ages of humanity. And some countries may not have been that way. But for the big ones, it was the golden age. Everyone understood the world but knew how to keep it in order. They knew the differences because war and peace. They knew that they can cooperate and live together. But now people are just taking that away. What I'm doing is an act to show that people are taking it away, and I'm trying to preserve it. To show that no one is safe, no matter how hard they work. Your protests aren't going to do anything. They're just words, they're not actions. No one would care if I go up to the school and shout a sign, "We're too innocent. Bring back the equality between violence and peace." They would think I'm fucking delusional. But to take action is what you have to do. Action is the only thing out of humanity that has made us this far, has brought us this far in a civilization. And society is collapsed. Civilization is no more. People don't see it, but we're on the brink of downfall. Like, not just the break, but the beginning of the end, basically. Everyone is born, works hard, and thinks that everything's going to be the same for hundreds of years. And technology will advance and that's it. But that's not how it happens. When the bell rings to end fifth hour, tomorrow, October 30th, November 30th, 2021, I'm going to walk to the dividend between the boys and the girls' bathroom. I will have my black jacket on, and I will walk behind someone, and I will shoot a bullet in their skull. Yeah, that's my first victim. I'm going to open fire on everyone in that hallway. The hallways are too jam-packed. I will try and hit as many people as I can. I will reload, and I will find people hiding. I'm going to teach them a lesson of how they're wrong, how they're being brainwashed. I understand that I'm going to prison for this. Michigan doesn't have a death penalty. I don't want to die. As funny as it may seem that I'm going to kill other people, I do not want to die. I realize how valuable life is. And I realize I broke the code of what's happening. I broke the code. I realize what is actually happening. And these people, they don't have the capabilities of understanding it. And so I'm going to teach the entire nation and the world of what's happening and how we're on the brink of downfall. I'm going to be using the 6R SP2022. I brought it at Acme Firearms up here in Michigan on Friday. It is a 9mm pistol that takes 15 plus 1 ammo capacity. I have 3 magazines for it. I've worn my mask for too long. I can't take it anymore. I've broke. I've fought it for years and for years, lying to myself over and over again. But it's taught me the truth. There's no voices in my head. The voices are me. I am the voices. I am arguing with myself back and forth. I have 3 constant voices, and then there's me physically. And I'm doing whatever those 3 voices tell me to do, and one of them is always coming up on top. And that's the one that's taken over. That's what people call the demons. There are no demons. I am the demon. You are the demon. There is a demon in everyone that is the voice. The demon will take over. There's nothing I can do about it. My life is already on a downfall. If I don't do this, nothing will happen. The world will collapse. I will be in misery. I'll probably just end up in a useless career in the army and killing myself. What use is that? I have the chance to teach the world to become a better place. And I have to take that chance. I've missed many opportunities in my life, and I'm not missing this one. I'm going to try and flee the school for as long as I can until I get caught. Just the thought of there's so many people who think they're going to live a life, going to go to college, have a great career, get a family, grow old, die happily. But they don't know that in less than a day, I'm going to die, and their lives are going to be changed forever. I understand my consequences. I understand that people will put me in prison for this. I've already said goodbye to everything. I went for all the phases. I'm surprised I even do it today. I'm sorry for manipulating you, Mom and Dad. You have trust in me. I made sure you had trust in me, and I just disowned you. But you should know it's for a cause. And I am ruining my life and not yours.
This test was taken a year after the shooting, a year or more.
Correct, over a year later.
Now, I just want to show you something. This has been admitted as
Has a lot on her hands.
42. This is just a snippet of the in-car transport when right after the shooting, right when now, that's the defendant on screen in the back of the police car, is that right?
Yes.
Do you see any signs of response to internal stimuli in this video?
No, I would note that his face isn't always in frame in this video, but in the next video, which is him at the substation.
Exhibit 43.
Could you please pause this and bring this to
I'm sorry, Judge. Please, go ahead.
Yes, what I was saying is that his face isn't always in frame in that video, so you can't always tell, again, what he's looking at or doing, but he's certainly not moving around a lot, he's not speaking, there's no audio. The first audio, I believe, is when he asks to have his toilet paper taken out of his ears when he gets out of the car. But the next video of him in the police substation, he's shown for an extended period of time talking with police, talking with his parents, and then sitting calmly as well, alone in the room.
I'm going to go ahead and play a portion of that. That's Exhibit 43 on the screen here. This is the defendant in the corner of an interview room in Oakland County Jail. Is that right?
Yes.
And this is again right after the defendant was arrested?
Yes, or it's perhaps in the substation.
Okay. Correct, thank you, the substation. That noise we're hearing, is that the defendant making a noise with his feet?
It's his shoes, yep.
Now again, do you notice or note any signs of psychosis here?
No.
Give me just a few minutes, okay?
So that was a police officer indicating the defendant just be a few minutes, and he responded to that.
Yep, he nodded relevantly.
Yep. All right, young man, go ahead and stand up, turn around for me. Thank you. You want him on the wall or? Yeah, it's fine. Okay, what hand or left-handed, young man? Right-handed. Okay. Sitting throw it down. I'm going to take his shoes off.
Again, the defendant responded appropriately to a question about if he's right-handed or left-handed?
He did, and he follows commands.
There you go. Go ahead and have a seat for me. I'm going to kick both your shoes off.
Pause it for a second here. The timestamp is November 30th, 2021, 14:35. So that's 2:35 in the afternoon. Is that right?
That's right.
And the defendant committed these murders 12:51 p.m. So this is just a short time after the murders. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm not going to play too much more. I just want to make sure you can verify you don't see any signs of psychosis here.
Thank you. Take your right foot out to me. Thank you. The other one? Thanks. What's your name? Ethan. Ethan, what's your last name? Crumbley. What is it? Crumbley. Crumbley? C-R-U-M-B-L-E-Y? All right, keep back here for a second.
Okay, again, Doctor, now at 14:36 on the timestamp, one of the investigators is asking some basic information from the defendant, and he responds to that.
He does.
Is this significant to you?
Yes, he's responding relevantly. He's paying attention. He's not speaking out of turn. His speech isn't disorganized. He goes on to answer more questions, and later his parents come in and he speaks with them as well.
Okay. Now, you mentioned toilet paper in the ears. Did you come to learn in your interview of the defendant, in the review of the evidence in this case, that the defendant took steps to protect his hearing by stuffing toilet paper in his ears?
Yes.
Did you also learn that the defendant went to the bathroom multiple times before the shooting occurred to load the firearm?
Yes.
Okay. What does that signify to you, if anything?
It suggests the capacity for planning and also for delay. So again, when we think for a criminal responsibility evaluation of someone's ability to conform their conduct, the ability to delay things is significant, because if someone is so overwhelmed with mental illness or psychosis, they're usually impulsive. They may act very impulsively. But in this case, the defendant went multiple times into the bathroom at different points prior to the shooting to load the gun or get the bullets out. It was a multi-step process. And that suggests that he had the capacity for delay. He could have just done it all at once the first time if he just couldn't wait because he was so overcome with delusions or hallucinations. But that's not what happened, and instead it was very planned, demonstrated this capacity for delay, and suggested the ability to conform his conduct.
So capacity for delay, is that another word for lack of impulsivity?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, you were asked early on in cross-examination if you spoke with the prosecutor's office, specifically me. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And in fact, you also spoke with Ms. Lofton, too?
Yes.
Okay. And is it your goal to obtain as much information as possible?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because the more data, the better in forensic evaluations. We don't want to just rely on one piece of data. We want the defendant's self-report. We want all of the available data that we can get, and we want to use our clinical judgment. That's how we come to conclusions.
Now, Doctor, you were asked about some things the defendant said to you during your forensic interview of the defendant. You recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And the defendant also said that, this is page 42 of your report, he said, when I got the gun, I was like, I have it, let's do it. And I was like, it's a crazy idea, but it just kept coming. He added that owning a 9mm made me feel like, oh my God, I'm awesome. He stated he'd like to show the gun to his father and say, I'm a bigger man because I have a bigger gun. He said that to you?
He did.
And then he also told you about how the day of the shooting, he set his alarm for 5 in the morning to wake up and to obtain the weapon. That's on
Correct.
page 44.
Correct. He told me that he would often sleep through his alarm, but on the morning of the shooting specifically woke up at that time because he knew his parents would be asleep so that he could obtain the weapon.
And at that point, he already had known where the gun was at and the bullets were at.
Correct.
So I'm going to go back to something that Dr. King testified to regarding suicidal ideation. Now, let's be clear, that is not a sign of psychosis, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and can you please explain that to me again?
Suicidal thoughts are not the same as psychosis. Psychosis is gross impairments in recognizing reality. Suicidal thoughts may seem illogical to people, but people can be suicidal for multiple reasons, and they're not considered the same thing medically.
As a mental health professional, why is it concerning to you when you hear somebody testify that?
Well, it's not accurate.
There's also stigmatized mental illness and treatment for mental illness.
Your Honor, my name is Karen McDonald. I'm the elected prosecutor in Oakland County. And before I get started, I want to state that I've dedicated my entire adult life to helping and advocating for kids. I was a public school teacher, a prosecutor, a family law attorney, judge, and I ran for this job on a platform of fair and just prosecution. We all have a duty to look at it all and to take a stand and only evaluate and report facts and circumstances that support an opinion and ignore what happened in the school is not the law, and it's also not the right thing to do. A proportional sentence also includes what's right and proportional with regard to retribution, and that means we cannot evolve in a way that we will only apply our sense of decency without hearing what the victims went through. That is at the core constitutionally of what we should consider when we sentence anyone. And so we are obligated to tell their story and to tell what it was like, because that is constitutionally why and how the court fashions a proportional sentence. Your Honor, it's morally complicated to doom someone to life at the age of 17. I know it. I'm not going to stand here and say that it's not. But I told you at the beginning that I was going to rely and demanded that this team rely and consider all the facts and all of the factors that the case law says we should, and all of the mitigating factors and all of it. Put it on the table. And while it's morally and legally complicated to do so, after having done that, I stand here today and I ask you to sentence the shooter to life without parole.
Good morning again, Your Honor. Everyone needs a safe place in their life. I don't feel safe anywhere. I'm going to ask my parents to go to the doctors tomorrow or Tuesday again. This time I will tell them about the voices. I only told them about the people I saw. Like I'm mentally and physically dying. Over the weekend, I actually felt warm for once. I woke up from a good dream. I said to myself, why can't everything freeze right here? I had just hoped everything could have ended there and not a second longer. I feel like I'm in a time loop of sadness. I will forever not feel the love of another human being, and not even I can love myself, as I hate myself probably more than some people already do. I barely made it through 9th grade mentally, as my depression was rough. Then I made it to 10th grade, and I have fully lost control. How the hell am I supposed to make it 2 more years when I'm already at my breaking point? Those are Ethan's words. Ethan was at his breaking point, and no one stepped in. Ethan had quit the bowling team. He had quit his job. He was failing almost every single subject. He sat alone at lunch. His only and trusted friend left. His dog died. He was hallucinating. He was hearing voices. He was depressed. He was suicidal. He was anxious. He was writing on a paper in the middle of class, surrounded by tears. The thoughts won't stop. Help me. The world is dead. My life is useless. The prosecutor was right. He didn't come to tell the counselor his plan. But did he have to? Wasn't it glaringly obvious? This was the 3rd instance in 24 hours. He was looking up bullets. He was watching a video of a shooting and now writing in actual words that he's hallucinating and needs help. And again, Ethan was overlooked. Ethan, in his own way, crying out for help, still went unnoticed. If there was a question about who cared about him, it was settled in the counselor's office. He sat there. His parents didn't greet him or touch him or act at all concerned and said, actually, we have to go to work. We can't do this right now. There was no question at that point that no one cared about him. Those are not my words. Those are the words of the prosecutor at the preliminary exam of James and Jennifer Crumbley. As a human, you want to try to rationalize things that happen, especially bad things, things against the norm, things that are unfathomable. You can't do that here. Because the thoughts put on paper in the journal, the words found in the text messages and the video, they are not rational. They're full of statements and arguments that support their belief in that case that he has mental illness. I want to go over a few of those. Preliminary examination held in front of the Honorable Expert to refute the findings of Dr. King. No one came in here and told you he performed these 20-plus tests incorrectly, and here's why. They didn't like what Dr. King was saying, so instead of finding an expert to agree with them and their point of view and come in to disprove his analysis, they attacked how he wrote the report. Now, Ms. McDonald said that they do not have the ability to have someone interview Ethan. I agree with that, but they can definitely call an expert to review Dr. King's report and create a report based on what they believe or what was wrong with Dr. King's report, and that wasn't done. Finally, the people called Dr. Anaker as a rebuttal witness. She was brought in when we filed a notice of insanity defense, and Ethan was referred for criminal responsibility. She examined him one time in March of last year. Her role was to evaluate him to determine if he was criminally responsible or if his mental illness rose to such a level that he was not criminally responsible. She wasn't his treating physician. She did not do any psychological testing herself, didn't have anyone else do it. We withdrew the insanity defense, and Ethan pled guilty. I do not agree with her opinion that Ethan was not mentally ill, and I don't think that the evidence that you have been presented with support that opinion. Nothing about her testimony or evaluation was about how he will be in the future. Nothing of what she testified to addresses any of the Miller factors. Now, one thing I found interesting about her report was when she discussed that she believed that the voice in Ethan's head was his conscience. I think that should go towards the first factor as further reason it should be mitigated. One doesn't have a conscience if they are this cold-blooded person that the prosecutor describes. For the prosecutor to stand before you today and argue that Ethan was not mentally ill is disingenuous. We do not operate in a vacuum. James and Jennifer Crumbley are charged on a different information, and their case is in front of a different judge. But the people cannot stand in this court and say Ethan does not have mental illness, and then stand before Judge Matthews, the Court of Appeals, and now the Supreme Court, and argue that he has mental illness. and that he was mentally disturbed. Their court filings are full of statements and arguments that support their belief in that case that he has mental illness. I want to go over a few of those. Preliminary examination held in front of the Honorable Julie Nicholson, February 24th of 2022. These are the words of the prosecutor. Both Jennifer and James Crumbley knew that the evidence showed that their son was experiencing disturbing mental health issues in the months leading up to the shooting. Found in their brief in support of the people's motion in limine to admit evidence, their son was manifesting signs of mental distress, expressing those manifestations to the defendants and asking them for help. Filings in the Michigan Supreme Court. Those devices and social media search warrant returns produced evidence showing that defendant's son was displaying signs of being in crisis, reporting hallucinations, and asking for help. We have one set of facts here. You can't stand in two different courtrooms and argue two different things when there's one set of facts.
Okay. So that was that on that video. You listen to his attorney and you're like, okay, I get that. I'm a human being. I have feelings. I get that part of it. And then you listen to the prosecutor and you listen and you're like, okay, I'm a human being. I have feelings. I get that. This is a tough decision for this judge to make. And I feel bad for him, but we'll find out on the 29th of what he's going to do. The other piece of this that we want to follow is what's going to happen with the parents, because their section of it is they're being held accountable for each case of manslaughter too, I believe. So I think that law is going to be huge. Whatever happens in that case is going to be huge going forward for any of these other incidents that occur from these young children that are doing this. Hopefully, they might have to take the brunt of it from everybody, but they seem like the best ones to do it, in my opinion. And again, just my opinion. No, I'm open to other people's opinions on this. I really am. I just think that it is a very sensitive topic, and we have to be careful what we say here on YouTube. So I do appreciate you guys for understanding that I couldn't say everything that I wanted to say on this. But when we get more details on the parents, I'll do an update on that. Until then, it looks like Ethan, we're not going to hear from that situation until the 29th of September. So thanks for watching, everyone. And I will talk to you very soon. Y'all be good.